the questions I get asked all the time is, what are your hours of service? What are hours of service? And one of the biggest questions I see on Facebook is, how do I, fill in question concerning hours of service? And as a trainer, I discovered that the schools aren't teaching these kids anything about hours of service. Their big motto is, you'll figure it out when you get to your job, and I really hated them for that. So I'm going to go over the basics of hours of service and try to explain it the best I can. I could read it to you out of this green book. There's 25 pages here, and I guarantee you, if I was to read all of this, it wouldn't make any more sense than it does now. So let's just dive into it, and I'll see if I can break it down. To start off, you have 70 hours and 8 days you can work. This is what it looks like on a computer. This is each log day right here, but it's just been compressed. But the amount of driving and on-duty time, what I'm picking up, or what I have left to drive today, and what I pick up tomorrow, because tomorrow this day will fall off, and I'll get 7 hours and 32 minutes back if I drive today. But back in the old days, this is what we had. We did it all by hand, but it's basically the same principle. You just have to keep 70 hours and 8 days and keep track of it like this. In some ways, these computers have made our lives a lot easier, because without me having to do all this math every day, it does make things a little bit easier. But the downside is, it does make me a little more complacent at times in what my hours actually are. So that's something you have to keep an eye on. So let's get to the next thing here. Now that we've done this, let's switch over. We'll hit the home screen here, go over to logs, and then this is the log for today. I'm busy doing a restart today, so that's why that looks like this, but I'll show it to you. This is one 24-hour period. It starts from midnight to midnight. It has your total hours here on the side. You're on duty, you're driving, sleeper berth, and off. Now, I did a split yesterday, so I have sleeper berth here, off duty, on duty here, driving. I did a 2-hour break, got a bunch of hours back, and then off duty. But this is what a typical 24-hour period looks like. Well, that's something else. This is the same as a paper log. As you see, when I put a paper log up next to it, it's pretty much the same graph, except this is all analog and that's digital. So, but it is the same thing. So let's start talking about the hours of service within this 24-hour period. Now I'm going to go through this, hopefully not too fast, but I'm going to try to break it down to the simplest terms, that way I don't lose anybody. So let's get with that. Okay, so we start off with the 70-hour clock. You got 70 hours you can work in 8 days. So there's 8 days represented here. So you break it down to 24 hours, basically midnight to midnight. You got your 14-hour clock, you have your 11-hour clock, and you got your 30-minute break, which is your 8-hour clock. So whenever you start, like if you start your clock at 6 in the morning, you have till 8 o'clock at night to do everything you need to do. So within this 14-hour clock, you can do 11 hours worth of driving. Now within that 11 hours worth of driving, you have to take a 30-minute break after 8 hours on duty. So if you start at 6 in the morning, you have to, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you got to do a 30-minute break. That's just, you have to. Now, if you do your 30-minute break, 2 hours in, you're going to have to do another 30-minute break some down the road here to get over that hump. Now, basically, with 11 hours worth of driving, you're going to get 8 hours back. Well, not 8 hours back, but you're going to get the rest of your time back. So if you drive 2 hours out of your 11, you're only going to get 8 hours back before you have to take another break to get another 9, because you still had 9 hours. But if you take 4 hours, take your 30-minute break, you'll get your 7 hours back. So let's put all this into practical use, and hopefully I don't fluff this up too bad. So let's take a look at the logbook and I'll show you what I mean. Alright, so we're gonna start here. I started my clock at 4:19 in the morning, did my break, and then or did my pre-trip and all that, and then I took off driving. Now I had to stop, I don't know what I had to stop here, but I was stopped here for a half-hour break for something. Let's see, what is it? Yeah, I fueled up, so I took a half-hour break because I probably got a shower. Took off driving a little while longer, and I took another half-hour break. I forgot what I did there. It's not important. Anyhow, so I continued to drive. I had to do some stuff there and there, but then I got another half-hour break. See, when I took the half-hour breaks here, focus, when I took the half-hour breaks here, I didn't quite have enough. I was a little short, so when I took the other half-hour break, I got the full amount of my time back. Now, you don't lose any time, but you only have that 8-hour period. So if you do it too early, you get another 8-hour period, but if there's still an hour you can drive, you have to take another half-hour break. Now, I finished on my driving at 5:01, and I went on my break at 5:01. Now, remember, I started my clock at 4:19. I could have worked till 6:19 for my 14-hour break. But this is an example of, you got your 14-hour clock, you got your drive time, you know, I did 9 hours and 56 with the drive time, 34 minutes worth of on-duty time, and I stopped at, just a little over an hour before my 14 would have run out. So, that's just an example here. Now that we've showed you the one day, you're going to have a total of 8 days like that to make your 70 hours. That's what that other graph was. This one right here. So the day we just showed you was, I believe it was that day right here. So that was just part of everything else. So now we'll show it to you on paper, and hopefully I can make this not too confusing, because I can already feel some of your eyes starting to glaze over. So we did this all old school. I did 8.75 hours. So what you do is you add up all your 8 days here. These are the total hours worked. These are your hours available tomorrow. Total hours go up, the hours available go down. So on the 8th day, we had 8 hours we could work. We hit our full 70. We had 0 hours. Now, tomorrow, we get this back. So tomorrow, we'll have 8.75 hours. So this will fall off tomorrow, and then we can actually basically just add this in tomorrow. I know it's a little confusing. I'm trying to make it easy, but basically and essentially, when your 8th day at midnight hits, those hours fall off. So if you don't use them, you actually bank them. So like I pick up 8.75 hours, but if I only use 4 of those tomorrow, I got 4.75 hours that I can carry over. These aren't day specific. Now, if you don't use them, it's not you don't use them, you lose them. They will roll over. So if you have a couple of short days, you're going to start banking some hours, and you can add them up, and then you can start having some good days again. Now, I'm real hesitant to talk about split sleepers. This is where a lot of people get confused. It gets confusing because you're dealing with a bunch of things simultaneously. I'll draw it out on my little notebook and try to explain it the best I can. But essentially what it is in a nutshell, it's the continuation of your clock. So if you drive 6 hours and you take an 8-hour sleeper break, you can drive 5 hours when your 8 hours is up. You stopped your 14-hour clock. You extended it. Now you have only that 5 hours to drive. But if you take a 2-hour break after your if you drive your 5 hours, you get those 6 hours back. Now, this is where people get confused. This is not a just a drive time. This is a 14-hour deal. So whatever you had driving and on duty during that initial time before your break, you have to subtract that out of the other side. So that's where people get in trouble. So you might be able to get your 5 hours of driving time back, but if you were 7 or 8 hours on duty and all that, you might only get a partial time. You may not have any flex time. So you're dealing with basically 3 periods. You got your first period before your break. You've got your break. You've got your next period after your break. Now, after your break, you can continue with your clock. Now, like I said, once you run out of that 14, after that, you drove your 6, you drive your 5, that's 11. You're out of time. Take your 2-hour break back, and then you can recoup that 6 before your break. That's where people get in trouble. You have to have 2 periods, one being an 8-hour sleeper break and one being a 2-hour break. Now, the dirty little secret is everybody thinks you have to do the 8-hour sleeper break first. You don't. If I had one deal where I sat around unloading towards the end of my day. I did a 2-hour break. I drove 20 minutes down to the truck stop, and then after I got reloaded, it was 19 minutes. I did an 8-hour break, and then suddenly, after my 8 hours, I had 10 hours and 39 minutes I could drive. That happens. It's going to take some playing around with. You have to, you've just got to play with it. And once you figure it out, it can actually be a real beneficial tool to help you get a lot done. If you're only going to drive 4 hours the next day, and you only drove 3 to 5 hours the previous day, what's the point in taking a 10 if you can knock off a couple hours early? Now, if you're doing full 10-hour breaks or you're doing full days, sometimes sleeper berth isn't going to be as beneficial to you. But it's up to you to figure out how to work it and how to get it done. It's not that hard. It just takes some practice and some time. And trust me when I tell you this, a sleeper berth and a sleeper break, the split, can be real beneficial to you in the long run if you work it properly. So that's just something to keep in mind. I hope I've given you at least an idea. This was really hard to do. It's hard to explain this kind of thing without a lot of practical application. It really just comes down to, it's going to take experience, it's going to take time, and it's going to take screwing up. I've screwed up a lot of logbooks in 20 years. Trust me on that. I continually, every now and then, I still screw up my e-log and have to make some kind of humbling phone calls. But that aside, you know, whether it's your regular logbook or whether it's just figuring out your sleeper, play with it. Now, don't do it where it's time critical and you know you can make it. If you got a little extra time on your clock and all this, try a few things out. You'll find out what works for you, what doesn't work, and eventually you're going to find a way to make your log work for you, make it efficient. That's what a lot of people are having problems with. It's not the log itself, it's that they don't understand the proper time management aspects of the log. It takes work, it takes time. But if you put the time in and you figure it out, you're going to be a success and you're going to do well with it. So I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I hope this hasn't been too mind-numbing to watch. I was really hesitant to do one of these videos because of that, but it's something I've been thinking about. So I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. See you next video.